they say it takes 10 calls maybe to get one person interested, right? Or it might be 100 calls to get two people interested. Whatever the numbers are, you have to put in the work. You're going to get those no's. No, 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 all along the way. But the way I think about it, which someone taught me a long time ago, for every no, you're that much closer to a yes. So actually get excited about it. Okay, I got that no. Now I'm closer to that yes. I don't know when that yes is going to be. It might be the next call or 3 more calls or 10 more calls, but I'm closer because the yes is coming. So if we have that mentality, to me, that helps us get through these tough times of setbacks or failures or whatever, however you want to call it, so that we're that much closer to hitting that yes, to hitting that goal, to be able to go in the direction that we're hoping to do. And then, not to take it personal that everyone on this planet has failure.
Hi, everyone. And today we have a very special guest with us, Roger L. Brooks. He is a best selling author, entrepreneur, and founder of American Real Publishing. His work bridges the world of storytelling, business, and personal transformation, helping authors bring their ideas to life and inspiring readers through thought provoking narratives like My Vatican thriller, The Secret Order. His journey is about turning bold ideas into reality, whether through books, businesses, or stories that connect us all. That is so wonderful, Roger. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So, just to begin with, the first thing that really caught my attention was the books and also the publishing, the house that you have established. And I read that 100% royalties provided to the author. That is so amazing. What got you to do that?
Well, as an author, I had a couple of experiences that were not so great, so you learn in life and you try to make things better. So my first book that I had published was a business book back in 2010, and the publisher took 92% of the royalties.
Wow.
And although we sold a good amount of books at the end of the day, and it's not always about the money, right? But you work toward that. That's part of the goal. It was a very small sum, and I knew there had to be a better way. So as I started looking into publishing and publishing other people's books, I wanted to develop a model whereby how I would like it,
Mm.
so by not taking any of the rights or royalties. So basically what our company does is we charge a service to do the editing, the cover design, all the interior design, the publishing, the distribution, but we don't take any of the royalties on the back end. So that way the author can recoup their investment that much quicker and feel really good about it going forward.
That is such a unique perspective. And, the thing about helping others, that is rare these days. And from that, I just want to know what got you to, like, let's begin with your journey to know a little more about where you started from. Perhaps if you'd like to speak more about your days at university, your education, how you proceeded from there, what got you into what you do currently?
Yeah, so I would consider myself, someone who does many different things. And I don't like to put myself into a box and say, I go to work and I only do this all day. I never really enjoyed that. So, I'm a creative. I like to create things. I like to help other people create things. And from a very young age, I always enjoyed writing. For some reason, it came pretty natural to me. I started writing poems, when I was in my teens. And my great aunt was a writer as well. And she encouraged me to write more. As a matter of fact, I have a framed picture from her. She sent me a postcard, and it said in this postcard back like in the 1980s, "You will be a writer of fiction someday." So that she kind of planted that seed for me at a young age that I could do it. And slowly, over the years, I really took to writing and then started creating my own books. My first book was a coffee table book that I did in honor of our daughter who went through severe um, surgeries on her eye when she was a baby. So I wanted to honor her with a book, and I did that. It was kind of a coffee table book. Then I wrote my business book. I wrote some self-help books. And finally, for the past 14 years, I've been working on a novel that I just put out this past April, which is, as you mentioned, a Vatican thriller. So I like to, do all kinds of different things. In addition, I'm also as a business person, I'm into technology, and I help large companies build their loyalty and rewards programs. I've been doing that for over 20 years. So I like to do a lot of different things. I like to keep busy, and in the midst of all this, have built a publishing company where we're helping about 10 to 15 people per month publish their books. And it's a really good feeling to be able to do that as well.
That's wonderful. So, speaking about 14 years, you mentioned writing the book. How was the journey? Like 14 years is a long time. That's amazing. I mean, I can imagine the amount of work you must have put in, but staying inspired and just
Yeah.
going at it like 14 years in a row and making it happen. What was the journey within when in these 14 years as you were writing the
Yeah.
book?
So good question. So, when I first started, I had read the Da Vinci Code back in the early 2000s, and that kind of sparked the idea that if I ever read a fiction book, I want it to be like that. I like that style. At the same time, my wife and I took our daughter after one of her surgeries to Italy, and we went to Assisi, where St. Francis of Assisi is from. And that's when it all kind of came together. I had this idea that I wanted to write this novel, and there'd be some connection to St. Francis. And that's what began the journey. So, but as a new writer of fiction, I really didn't know what I was doing. So I hired a writing coach. I hired this man named James Bonnet out of Los Angeles. We worked together for a good 5 years, pretty solid. I went to a couple of his writing retreats. I worked with him every Friday for several years, and he really taught me the the craft of writing fiction. And I feel like it was, a college course on steroids because I did it for so long. But it's that old adage: you have to put in the 10,000 hours to really do something very well. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to just put out any book. I wanted to make it really, really good. So, yes, there were highs and lows in this over this course of the 14 years. It's not like I was working on it every day. There would be
Yeah,
months that
sure.
went by where I didn't work on it. But, I kept refining it, refining it, refining it, worked with several editors. And, about this time last year, my father approached me, who at the time was 86. And he said, "Look, are you ever going to get this book done? I want you to finish this book before I leave this earth." So that really gave me the extra push to get it done. So this time last summer, I worked really hard between now and the end of the year to polish it up. Worked with my editors, and finally we published it in April. So it took that extra push from my dad to really make it happen.
Well, that's wonderful, but that's great. Great work on the book, and I'm so excited to read it. I can hardly
Thank
wait.
you.
Okay, so now there are a lot of aspiring writers out there, and they always have this: I don't have the time, or I don't have the money. Who's gonna read it? All those kind of thoughts that jump around in the mind. Did you have any of those thoughts to begin with? What was it like when you got started? Because as I understand, you started as an author and then shifted to being a businessman. What was it like?
Yeah. So look, I think every author goes through that, especially in the beginning,
Hmm.
where we feel we're not worthy or who's going to read our work, all those examples that you mentioned. But I believe it takes something inside that you need to trigger where you have to really block out those thoughts. And this is any, whether it's writing a book or anything in life, if you have those self-limiting beliefs, it's really going to hold you back from attaining your goals. So my whole thing is, you know, do it before you're even ready, right? Just jump in. And even if you don't know everything that you're doing, jump in and do it and do your research, and don't be intimidated by it, because like anything in life, writing is a craft, but at the same time, you have the freedom as an author to do it your own way, to write it your own way and create it your own way. So for me, it's really about putting aside those self-limiting beliefs and diving into it. And especially today with all the tools that we have at our disposal now with AI, even, and not using AI to write, but using AI to say, okay, how do I how do I begin a writing outline, for my book? There's a lot of things you could do through AI to help you get started. And you really have, someone in your corner working with you every step of the way now that we have those tools available. So yeah, I would say, just you have to stay positive, be confident, and really enjoy the subject matter that you're writing about. Because at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy it, then it's going to shine through your work, and the reader likely won't. So yeah, it's something very personal, and something that I feel every person has in them to write a book.
Wow, that's absolutely amazingly put. And just for your information, like this is the first episode that you're recording, and I just did it because I love it. And there were thoughts in my mind like, what's going to happen, how I'm going to do it. I've not done interviews before, but I said, you know what, let's jump into it. Of course, I've heard podcasts, other podcasts like Lewis House, and there are so many other podcasts I listen to, including Joe Rogan. And I was like, okay, well, I've heard them and it sounds pretty doable. If I think too much, I probably won't end up not doing it. So here I am.
Oh, that's
And
great,
thank you
and
so much
congratulations to you.
thank you so much. And
Absolutely. I started my own podcast back in 2017, so I know
yeah,
what it was like. And like I said earlier, whether it's writing a book or recording a podcast, you just have to do it. And, good things typically come from it.
absolutely amazing. And so as you were writing your book, did you also start your business from scratch? How did you go about doing two things at the same time?
Yes.
Did you have a
So
job?
I'll
What
take
was
you
it like?
back. My career started when I was in my, say, mid 20s.
Hmm.
And I've worked with the same folks since then. I've been working with the same people since then. And that was my, day to day, job, if you will, which I really love. So in my spare time, I started doing writing. I started doing these other things. I started my publishing company, so that today, here we are, 25 years later, I really am able to live the life that I love, which is really doing the things that I love on my time, and being able to help people, being able to go to meetings, being able to travel, all these different things at the same time. But it doesn't happen, right away. You have to work toward that. So, yes, for many, many years, I worked nights and weekends on my passion projects. And I worked during the day, like most people, to earn a living to provide, food for the family. So, we all have the same amount of time in a day. We all have 24 hours. It's how do you use that time? And I interviewed a gentleman, David Meltzer, several years back. And one of the things that he said that stuck with me is to be a student of your calendar, to really be very specific and precise with your time. What are you going to do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed? And you have to have time in there for yourself, for self-care, things like meditation and whatnot. But also, if your calendar is not structured, then it likely will be empty. So I really started to develop my days around my calendar, and even blocking out time when necessary for myself, or for, family time or whatever it may be. But I think that is the key, is to be a student of your calendar. And, I'm not one to watch much TV or just sit around and, things like that. I think we're all here on this earth for a short time, so we might as well make the most of it each and every day.
Well, I really resonate with that. You know why? Because generally I've heard that you need to sacrifice a lot. Sure, I do understand, like, not watching TV might be a sacrifice for some people. But at the same time, I feel it's all about priorities, right? So, and as you put it, scheduling can really help us to even have time for for other things in life that are more important, like family, for example, for instances. So that is so well put, and I totally resonate with that. That you don't have to go sacrificing to the level where you can't see your family anymore, or friends, your close friends.
That's right. Yeah, and
And
I think yeah, yeah, sacrifice comes in a lot of different ways, right? And certainly, in my opinion, you don't want to overwork,
yeah,
right? But you have to be able to be willing to put in the work in order to get to the goals that you want to achieve. So it's a balance that you have to do. And I think you have to find that for yourself, how you do it, where you do it. I'm blessed to have an office in my home. So that helps a lot. It was detached from our house so that when our kids were younger and growing up, I had that separation. So you just have to, I guess, kind of find your own space and time to be able to put in the extra work in order to be able to hit those wins that you want to along the way.
awesome. Yeah. And as you were building your businesses, were there any, like, as you were starting out and working on your business and writing the book, were there times where you felt like struggle, internal struggle or external struggle? Any such instances? Could you give us, maybe tell us a little more about it and how you dealt with it?
Sure. I think in every business in everyone's life, there's struggle. If we don't
Yeah.
have struggle, then we don't learn. But we have to learn from those struggles in order not to make the same mistakes or go through the same types of things. I've been through all of them, whether it's financial or, trying to, close some business that's taking a long time. Whatever it may be, we all have our struggles. So one of the things that I've learned along the way is to be able to bring in people into your organization that can help fill the voids of things that you don't do well, because we don't all do everything well. So to me, the key is hiring great people and treating them really well. Because if you don't have that team beside you, then you're not going to be able to do the day to day. And then, the struggles build up to a point where it's really hard to get out of. So I would say I learned that early on is to surround yourself with really good people, not only people that work for you, but also mentors, to be able to have people to reach out to if you are having a struggle. How do I get through this? What advice do you have? So I have, several mentors that I have built relationships with over the years. And, you don't have to talk to them all the time, but make sure you're checking in every few months or take them to lunch every once in a while to be able to have those good people in your corner who have, been through it all as well and can help you through those tough times.
Yeah, that totally makes sense and reminds me even of Steve Jobs. He also mentioned that with his team, he used to treat them like family. And he and his team, they all used to go out for lunches and all. And at some point, I think they even took them skinny dipping. And he said, I'm just doing all of this because I want everyone to be close, very close knit. And so, when you have that kind of a family kind of a bonding even at workplace, then it really makes a huge difference. Totally makes
Yeah,
sense.
no doubt. And the business that I mentioned I've been in has been with family, and we've worked all together. And then people that aren't family become your family because you do spend so much time with them. To the tune that we're together so much that we don't know it any other way. It's and we're able to get through a lot of things because we're so tight and because we are, you know, together so often.
Yeah. And, as you were working at that point in time, did you ever have a doubt? What if, generally, as you think of, what if it doesn't work? What if it turns out that way? How did you deal with those things?
Sure. Look, and here we are today, those same thoughts still, come to you, right? I think there's seasons of success, seasons of ups and downs, and you just, you have to get through them, and know that it's part of life. It's not always peaches and cream. Every day is not going to be, the home run day where things are going great. You have to take the good with the bad. You have to, get through those times with perseverance and resilience, and not let them bring you down, because it's easy to fall into a trap where, if things aren't going well, to get, depressed over it, and to lose interest. But I think if you keep the mindset that it's just part of the journey, that, you know, going up, you're going to have some dips, as you go up, and that's quite natural. It's like, it's like water, it ebbs and flows, and you have to roll with it, I feel, to be able to be at your best every day, expecting the unexpected, right? Because things do come up that we just don't expect, and we have to be ready for those times, so that when they do happen, you're not totally shocked, and you're
Right.
able to handle them with respect and care, and things typically work out for the best.
So, all in all, it's all about perseverance and persistence. No matter what happens, you've got to keep going and keep trusting the process. Is that so?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's okay to be able to take a step back and take a break. You
Hmm.
don't always have to be in high gear. If you're
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I feel I just need some time alone, it's good to take a walk. It's good to just get outside and clear your mind. Maybe you do need to watch TV just to clear your mind, or listen to some music. All that's well and good. And I think if you take everything in stride, then, as I mentioned, things do work out.
Great. So, now just moving on to the part where you mentioned financial struggle. So, when you were at that stage in your life where you were going through that financial struggle, how did you deal with it? What was it like?
Well, it's one of the toughest things, right? And financial struggle could mean different things to different people, but even at different levels of life, you may be struggling financially for something today that is much bigger than it was, say, 10 years ago. Um, but maybe you know how to deal with it a little bit better. So, when these things happen, when you don't get the mortgage that you wanted, or at the interest rate, or whatever it may be, again, I think you just have to clear your head and find a different path, and know that wherever you're trying to go financially, you have to be responsible. You have to live within your means, all those kinds of things, which there were times, in my life where that wasn't the case.
Mm.
And again, you live and learn, and you get better at it. And that responsibility, I think, is what carries you forward to be able to make good decisions. But yeah, I mean, financial struggles happen, I think, to many people in many different ways, and it's really um, how you embrace them, uh, positively or negatively, where the outcome is going to happen. And just trying to stay positive, and being able to put your best foot forward, um, has been my rule of thumb, to be able to say, okay, this didn't work. Let me try this, or let me call this person to see what advice they may have to help get me on the right path.
That's incredible because a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but there are people when they face these kind of struggles, they feel like it's better to fall back in the comfort of a job, and somehow they have their dreams gets crushed, and they feel that maybe it wasn't ever for them. You know, a lot of times people feel entrepreneurship is not for me, but I think at the way you look at it, it's all about perspective, that you kept going and you kept doing and you kept trying to find the answer. That is so incredible.
Yeah, look, and I think a lot of times if you have this initial goal, right? Like when I started the publishing business, I it came out of other things. It wasn't something that I intended to do necessarily. I was actually coaching people to help them to write a book. And
Mhm.
then once they got their book written, they were looking to get it published. Well, I had experience with that. So I naturally tried to help get them published. And then this kept happening more and more. And then I found out, just based on my advertising, that there were more people looking for publishing versus coaching. So I naturally went into that part of the business because that's where the demand was. And then, you get into this business and then you find out what types of things people are looking for, which happens to be, one of the big things is editing. A lot of people have a hard time finding a good editor. So we invested in editors. And then they want great cover design. So you have to invest in designers. So the business built itself over time by just, you know, allowing yourself to go with the demand of your clients. And that's what I've done over this last 6 7 years to build the publishing company is I let the clients tell me what they need, and then we get really good people to help with those different demands.
It's all about solving problems. I think since day one, the way I'm getting the feel, you have been such a genuine person, always wanting to help and solve problems. And then that just grew, it seems like. That is incredible.
Yeah, and look, I think no matter what you do in whatever business, if you have good intentions, I definitely this is a law of life. If you have good intentions and you're putting out good energy and you're helping people, it comes back tenfold. It
Wow.
just does. And in ways that you couldn't imagine, doors open like you couldn't believe. And I'm blessed to be able to have experienced that. So now I could talk about it. And still to this day, things happen every single day that are unexpected. And I really believe it's for, a lot of it is from putting out positive energy into the world.
I totally believe that too. And even now, you're inspiring me and all our listeners as well. So that is truly amazing. And with that, I'd also like to talk about failures. A lot of people, including me, have been at a time when I have consistently faced so many failures in my life, one after the another, one after another. And I'm sure there are a lot of people also who face the same. And it's not really unusual when we start like on a journey of being an entrepreneur or doing something on our own as a standalone thing. How did you deal with failures?
Yeah, well, I think, that one is really how you frame it, in my opinion. So, um, to me, a failure is just a step in the process. So, you know, to you, a failure may be, oh my gosh, I tried this, it didn't work. I'm a failure. Whereas if you reframe it and say, look, as I go on my journey, there's going to be things that don't do well and things that do well. And those that don't do well, that's just part of the process. So don't dwell on it. Just say, okay, that happened. Now let me move on. If you dwell on it, if you think about it, if you beat yourself up over it, then it could go in the other direction. Whereas if, a failure does happen and you're, like I said earlier, you expect the unexpected, like there is going to be some type of a setback, then you just move forward and say, okay, it didn't work this way. Let me go that way. And you just have to pivot. Again, I think, us as humans, we're pretty structured the way we're brought up. And from everything I've read and listened to over the years, we weren't really meant to be that way. We weren't meant to be sitting in an office all day and, working numbers and crunching things and proposals and all that. We need to ebb and flow. We need to be like that water where, yes, if a failure happens, okay, eh, laugh at it. Say, okay, that didn't work. Now I'm going to go on to the next one. And I think if we have lightheartedness when those things happen, even though it's hard, then it makes it a little bit better and almost comical where you can say, okay, that one didn't work. I'm going in this direction now. So easier said than done, but I think the more it happens, the better you get at it. It's like the sales world. They say it takes 10 calls maybe to get one person interested, right? Or it might be 100 calls to get two people interested, whatever the numbers are. You have to put in the work. You're going to get those no's, no, 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 all along the way. But the way I think about it, which someone taught me a long time ago, for every no, you're that much closer to a yes. So actually get excited about it. Okay, I got that no. I'm closer to that yes. I don't know when that yes is going to be. It might be the next call or 3 more calls or 10 more calls, but I'm closer because the yes is coming. So if we have that mentality, to me, that helps us get through these tough times of setbacks or failures or whatever, however you want to call it. So that we're that much closer to hitting that yes, to hitting that goal, to be able to go in the direction that we're hoping to do. And then, and not to take it personal that, you know, everyone on this planet has failure. You're not,
Yeah.
no one's immune to that.
Right. And that is such a wonderful perspective. And then again, people might say, all right, well, I'm dealing with whatever there is, my perspective on failure, I'm changing that. But then there are these people outside of me who keep taunting me. Maybe it might be family, maybe closed ones, whatever it is. And people keep telling you that, hey, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? You don't understand, whatever it is. How do you deal with that chatter outside of you?
Well, yeah, that's a good one too. So you can't be so blind to something that you don't listen to people. But at the
Uh-huh.
same time, if you're on a path where you don't need or want distractions, you have to know what to take in and accept, and you have to know what to block out. And I think this comes down to just being responsible as a person. So, if my wife tells me, hey, you've been doing something, that annoys me, then you know what? I better listen and not do that. Because why would I want to annoy her? That's not. I don't want to be annoyed. So why would I want to annoy her? So I need to listen to that. So there's things that happen in our lives, especially with family, that it gets kind of uh, a lot of tension can build up and whatnot. But in my opinion, you have to know what to let in and what not to let in, so that you're being responsible about listening to advice, not tuning it out if it could be helpful, but not letting in the negativity so that you can truly work toward your goals. It is a fine line, and I think it takes some practice and it takes some, mistakes that you may not make the right decision when you're getting input from people, but hopefully you could learn from that to get better at it, so that you could become better at what you do based on the feedback that you're receiving.
Yeah, and sounds like whatever that you have covered so far, it's you're very mindful of where your attention is going because, as they say, energy flows where attention goes, right? So you're really paying attention to where you're feeding your attention. It's like the gold, it's the commodity that matters the most.
It is, and one of the things that I've learned, that helps tremendously, is the power of gratitude
Oh, yeah.
and being grateful for everything that you have. Again, even if something bad happens, you may want to be grateful for that, because now
Mhm.
you learn something from it, right? So if you have gratitude and you live with gratitude, and some people even meditate on this or speak it out. Don't be afraid to tell people, how grateful you are for them. And that's another thing I've learned that's really helped me is, sometimes we're afraid to tell people, wow, I'm really grateful for you. I'm grateful for you doing this podcast today. I'm grateful for, um, you know, whether it's my kids or my wife or my parents or whatever it is. Tell them that you're grateful. it has an appeal internally to yourself and to them that is like no other. So I think having that gratitude and living in that gratitude on a day-to-day basis, again, you can't live in la la land, but just if you have it part of your practice, then it, certainly to me helps with everything else that you do once you have that gratitude in your heart.
That is so beautifully put. Just thinking about that makes one feel so amazing. Absolutely. And I would like to ask you one more question that I think it just sounds so interesting to me that okay, that 14 years you took to write the book. Do you think that process of writing the book transformed some part of you within inside of you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
The process when you were writing the book for 14 years. Do you think that process as you were writing the book, it transformed something within you?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So the first thing is, uh, as a writer with most artists of any kind, um, I feel you could tap into what I call the creative unconscious. And my writing coach taught me this. And that is to be able to, uh, when you write, it's actually coming from a higher level than just your mind, than your conscious mind. But you really have to get into it. You have to be in the moment of it for this to happen, which you could also call kind of flow state, where you're allowing yourself to be used as a tool to be able to take from the universe or whatever you want to call it, God or whatever it may be, um, the words or the art, if you're an artist, whatever it may be, to be able to put that out there. So throughout my journey, there's many, many times where I write something after doing research and thinking about things, and you just don't know where it comes from. And then you go back and you read it and you say, wow, I don't even remember writing that, let alone, where did this come from? So the process in and of itself is transformational if you're open to this type of thing. At least
Yeah.
it was for me, to be able to tap into that creative unconscious, even when you're sleeping. You know, a lot happens when we sleep. And, a lot of times I would wake up and a thought would come or an idea and, keep the notepad by your bedside and jot it down so you don't forget it, or get out of bed and actually go to your computer and start writing. So a lot of those things happened over the course of the 14 years, but it absolutely transformed me as a person. And, not to get too deep with it, but the main character in my book is a real person. I molded it after him, and he's a friend of mine. He is an artist. And I asked him, I said, do you mind if I use your persona in the book? And he said, no, absolutely not. Well, in real life, he went through his own transformation as I was going through my own transformation of writing this book. So, just some amazing things happened during the process that is even hard to explain, where people may not even believe it. But it's just incredible what can happen when you get vulnerable and allow yourself to be able to transform along the way. And as I mentioned early on, we went to Assisi.
Hmm.
That's where my inspiration came from. And once I started doing research about St. Francis of Assisi and how he lived his life and the things that he did to help himself and others transform, um, that was the most important part for me to put into the book so that people could learn from his life story and how he did things. And, he was one of the most remarkable people I feel to ever walk the face of the earth. And that was really important to me to be able to share his story as part of the book.
Could you shed, if you don't mind, and if you only if you feel called to do so, could you shed a little more light on Saint Francis of Assisi and what kind of transformation or effect it had on you, his story, or there were some things that you mentioned, there were some transformations in your life. If you could also give an example at the same time, something maybe related to Assisi himself?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is when we went there, when my wife and I went there, I took a walk by myself for a couple of hours, and just being in the streets of Assisi, it's a mystical town. Medieval times it was built, and it feels like you're back in that time. I mean, it's everything's exactly the same except for electricity and things like that. But for the most part, it is pretty close to the way it was when he walked those streets. So just being in that in that town, walking through those streets, knowing that he was there as well, does something to you. But I took it a step further. I went to, where he was buried, his crypt. I went to where he grew up. And, by going to these different places, I went to the church that he went to where, he said God spoke to him. And doing all these things really put me into my own transformation. I just had this amazing feeling inside that, something was magical. And this is when the whole thought of the book idea came to be. And, it's really something I think you have to experience for yourself, whether it's a CC and there's other, parts of the world where people say they go and they just get this feeling. That's one of them. You just have this overwhelming feel of peace and his presence that is just it's hard to describe. But I took that with me. I took that essence of that feeling. um, I started listening to some music, and that would bring back the memories of Assisi. I started following this gentleman, Richard Shillman. He wrote the music while he was in Assisi. It's called Light from Assisi. And actually his music is part of my audiobook, so I contacted him. So all this
Oh,
stuff just started happening and falling into place, that because of that first trip there. And then I went back several times to do my research and take the book to another level and be able to actually really know all the things that St. Francis did. And he was remarkable. He was born out of a pretty wealthy family. His father was a cloth merchant, and his father wanted him to follow in his footsteps. And at that time, there were, war was going on between Assisi and Perugia. So when Francis was like 18, he joined the military, went into battle, got hurt, was imprisoned, and he had his own epiphany coming out of that prison. And when he got back to Assisi, he told his father he no longer wanted to, you know, he didn't want to be in the military. He didn't want to be part of the family business. And he just went down this spiritual path, and he never looked back. He left his home, and he started his order. And, for back then in the Middle Ages, there were over 10,000 people that became Franciscans. And he's not even a priest. He wasn't even part of the clergy. Yeah, although he had all these people from all over following in his ways, which is really to sacrifice, to live with little. You don't need to live extravagantly, and that's what he believed. And he had many, many followers of that, and which became the Franciscan order. Which today there's many priests that follow that same order, and they live by a law of poverty and obedience, and they take those vows very serious. And I learned a lot along the way with my research about the Franciscans, about Saint Francis. He there were many miracles that he had, whether it was healing the blind or um, leopards of those days, healing the sick. He was a remarkable, remarkable person.
wow, that is really, really interesting. And I think that makes your book a must read. The more I listen to you, the more I feel like just getting hold of your book and start reading it right away.
I appreciate it. And it is, I'll just hold it up here. It's called The Sacred Order. You could
Secret
get it
Order.
on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And
We'll also
yes,
place a link in the show notes for those who'd like to buy. And I would say it's an absolutely must read. I'm definitely reading it.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay. As we come to a close, what message would you like to give to those aspiring entrepreneurs or anyone out there who might be struggling and who wants to get to outer prosperity, because it's very clear you need that inner wealth, you need that inner power to even be prosperous outside of you. And I think in today's time, a lot of us are just trying to just get hold of that outer prosperity, really without doing anything within, or really changing who we are, or transforming ourselves, evolving ourselves. So, do you have any message, anything you'd like to say on that note?
No, and I think that's just it. We have all the tools we need within us. They're all there. We just have to tap into them, and we have to be confident about that, and not be afraid to take risks, within reason. You don't want to be, foolish about it, but in order to prosper, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a business, whether it's, following your passion, whatever it is, just tune in to your, you know, insides, and within your heart, within your mind, within your soul, right from wrong, good from bad. We know instinctively what to do. So we have to tap into that with confidence and come out on the other side knowing that the way we do things is different than everyone else. And it's a good thing. It's good to be authentic. It's good to be your own person. It's okay to try to mold yourself, I think, after others. Like I wanted to mold my book after the Da Vinci Code because I love that book. But, I'm not Dan Brown. I can't write the same book, and I don't want to. But I came out on the other side writing my own book. Um, and I think everyone can do that, whatever they want to do in life. Just, have the ability to look within with confidence, knowing that you already have the tools to be able to do whatever you want on this earth. It's unlimited. The prosperity is unlimited.
That is so beautiful, and it really aligns with what the podcast is about. So it couldn't have been better. The first episode. I mean, you having you as a guest was a true blessing, I would say. Thank you. I'm so honored to have you today, Roger Brooks, and I'm also so looking forward to reading your book. Thank you so much for taking out the time and being on this podcast, and also supporting me and inspiring me and all of us.
Thank you so much. Best of luck. I'm honored to be your first guest. I know how hard it is to start a podcast. You'll do awesome. And I really look forward to staying in touch.
Same here. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, see you all at the next episode. Take care.